Let's go.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm your host, David Horsager. Join me as I sit down with influential leaders from around the world to discuss why leaders and organizations fail, top tactics for high performance, and how you can become an even more trusted leader. Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. It's David Horsager, and I am thrilled to have with us today Meridith Elliott Powell. Thank you for being with us.
I'm excited to be here, ready for this conversation.
All right. Well, Meridith, you've been an expert to so many. I was even reading your top 15 business growth expert. I know you're an award-winning author. I know you're an award-winning speaker. I know some of the people have been seen on NBC, and you've got clients that are just amazing. But let's go back a little bit. Where did some of this come from? And then I'm excited to jump into especially your newest book. But tell us a little bit about you that we don't know.
Yeah, so a little bit about my journey. I've had kind of a crazy career. A lot of people get out of college, know exactly what they want to do. I was not that person. And my background includes travel and tourism, financial services, and healthcare. And I never thought my career made a lot of sense that I'd worked in so many different industries until I was actually being interviewed one day and somebody said, kind of walk us through your journey. And what I realized was I enter companies when they're going through massive disruption. I got into travel and tourism when a hurricane had wiped out a community. I got into healthcare when huge cutbacks were coming from the government. And I got into financial services when regulation hit. So where most people run away from uncertainty, I tend to run into it. So I like disruption and change. And that kind of landed me where I am and helping companies really navigate those challenges.
That gets us into this book, and you've authored many books, but this new book, Thrive, Strategies to Turn Uncertainty to Competitive Advantage. And you even talk about a formula for making uncertainty your competitive or your strategic advantage. I think, hey, people want to know right now, what? I've been getting blown away by volatility, uncertainty, and complexity and all this change, and I'm overwhelmed. You're saying it can be a strategic advantage? What do you mean?
Well, for those exact reasons, a couple of years ago, long before we ever heard about COVID, it was ever on the radar, I kind of became obsessed with uncertainty because every business leader I would talk to was saying the same thing. Business is good. Business is great. We're having our best year on record. But this uncertainty, like we always waiting for the ball to drop, for the bottom to fall out. And I just started to think, why does uncertainty and change have to be a negative? And what could happen in your organization if you could be the leader who could create a team who believed that disruption was exactly what you needed to propel and go to another level? And that kind of turned me on. I wanted to answer that question. And I just started studying organizations and businesses that have been around for at least 250 years. And from all that research, I created a 9-step proven formula for what it takes to navigate any level of uncertainty, whether it's as tiny as putting in a new CRM or it's as big as going through the Delta variant.
Let's jump into that. I mean, where do we start? We've got this uncertainty. We even have uncertainty before we even know it's a COVID, right? There's uncertainty right before we even know there's uncertainty almost. So how do we deal with that? We talk a lot about building trust in the midst of change, how we do it. It's not an easy thing, but it's critical. So where would you start?
Yeah, I think it's the same with uncertainty. It's a fairly simple formula, but it isn't easy. But where you need to begin is you need to begin by shifting your mindset about how you think, you feel, and what you believe uncertainty to be. One of the most fascinating things from doing the research was that every leader, every company, you can look down through their history and how they function today, is the leader has a very clear vision on where that business is going to be and what it's going to contribute over the next year. And that's important because when obstacles get in front of you, if you can't see beyond the obstacle, you get stuck. right? You hit that obstacle and you can't see beyond it. One of the examples I use in the book is just quickly Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. I can't imagine what it was like to try to fight for civil rights. And people didn't even know if they were going to win, if they were going to get them. And they would get exhausted and they would get tired. But with that speech, he painted the future. He painted what could be. And that's what gives people motivation to keep pushing through. So I call it a relentless vision in the book. You have to be so focused and over communicate so that people can see beyond the crisis at hand.
So how do I, this even on its own, I'm just going to, because I know how brilliant you are and how you can handle the toughest boardrooms and you've been in them. So, yeah. And we're friends. So, let's, there seems like learning comes in the tension sometimes because,
sure.
I think about this and it's like even last year, I had the unique opportunity to be on a call with General McChrystal,
fascinating.
2 months after about the, it was about May of the pandemic, maybe of 2020. And basically a couple things he said. Number one, gone are 1 year visions, 1 year mission statements kind of deal as an idea. He said, basically, one thing that worked, first of all, he said, you're going to have to tighten up the time frame. In times of turbulence and massive change, you might have to just say this week, hey, everybody, here's where we're headed this week, because we don't even know what next week's going to look like or whatever. But he also said, basically, many that are listening remember that he really took charge of the joint forces in when Afghanistan took a turn for the worst, and basically they're having all this trouble, can't find Osama bin Laden, can't this, can't that, and basically he said, okay, we need to figure this out, and he really shortened the time frame, and if I'm not mistaken, what he said is, instead of having these even weekly or these meetings with the intelligence officials around the world so every so often, he said for the next however many days, 2,200 intelligence officials are going to get on the phone with me at 0600 my time, wherever he was, whether he was in Europe or DC that day or wherever. And we're going to get on the call for 30 minutes. Anybody with new information, you've got to share it. We're going to make a plan for the day. And they found bin Laden and a host of other things. But he really narrowed that focus because, this out there a year, I don't know what that's going to be like in a pandemic, and yet I see the dream of Martin Luther King is even bigger than a year, right? So I don't know, maybe you can give me a little.
Absolutely. I think that absolutely when we think about goals or accomplishments, they're skinnied down. They have to be narrow because we don't know what it's going to look like. I was just with a CEO right before this podcast and we were talking about the fact that will the supply chain open up? Won't it open up? Those can mean so many different things for his business. But let me give you an example. Just this past Saturday, I was in Anaheim, California, speaking for a fascinating business. It's called the Oncology Institute. And it's run by this former Wall Street banker, their CEO. And when I first talked to him, I said, help me understand what makes you unique, what makes you different. And this was what he said. He said, we're looking to revolutionize how people get cancer treatment, the experience that they have, all while bringing down the cost of cancer treatment. Now, imagine you work for the Oncology Institute. You have this massive obstacle in front of you. You've got to deal with regulation. You've got to deal with staffing issues. You've got to deal with insurance companies. You've got to deal with so much. But every day you're reminded you are revolutionizing and changing the way that people are treated for one of the most tragic services in the world. You're making a difference. And that's what pushes you through the slog. Going after and taking down Osama bin Laden, I don't know, maybe it takes a week, maybe it takes 2 years, but being reminded every day that that's what I'm trying to accomplish, that's what keeps you from getting stuck in the obstacle. Look, I don't know what they did to try to bring down Osama bin Laden, but I'm going to tell you, I feel really safe in saying it didn't work a couple of times they tried. And they had to pick themselves back up. They had to dust themselves back on, and you have to try again. Welcome to uncertainty. That's uncertainty. And as the leader, you have to craft that vision, and you've got to remember and remind people why they have to keep trying.
you've got some great stories in the book, and maybe this will make it real for people. But I think I'd like listeners to think of whether you're a mom or dad leading your family in uncertainty,
completely.
because whether you're an entrepreneur like me, we just had an outbreak again of somebody with COVID. We've had people on staff that will be vaccinated, people that don't want to be vaccinated. We got these challenges, even for me in my small headquarters. There's challenges of how do you navigate and lead even still 2 years later. So maybe I just would have people, whether you're running a big company like some of the stories in the business, or you're running a family, how can we lead in the uncertainty ahead? Because it's certainly better to be leading in it. So maybe let's go a little deeper in the framework, but maybe on one of the stories, is one that's most relevant that you could give to kind of make it sticky?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny that you would ask this, because when I finished writing the book, I was done. I was sending it off to the publisher. All of a sudden it hit me that the Great Depression didn't end at 5:00. And these people had to take this home to their, to their personal lives. And how do you get through this? So the last part of the book I wrote for applying this to your, to your personal life. And I'll give you one. This didn't come out of the book, but I think it's apropos because I've been doing it with my husband right now. Is my husband just had foot surgery, and it's going to be a 9-month process. He's had the first of 3 surgeries. Now, we are super active people. We are on mountain bikes. We are on tennis courts. We are on golf courses. We are hiking. We rarely sit still. And now he's been put into the bed for 9 months, total recovery. He's going to have to keep reusing his foot. So I sat down with him this weekend and I said, where do you see yourself a year from now? What are the very first things that you want to do when your foot recovers? And he said, I want to hike a trail in the Smokies. I want you and I to go on a mountain biking trip. I want to see myself back walking with the guys on the golf course. I wrote that all out on a note card, and every morning we read that together because I want his eye on where he's going. So you have little kids in the house and they're struggling with junior high school. Keep their eye on the little dreams that they have, winning Little League or the difference that they want to make when they grow up. Just put a few things on a note card. Thank God we don't all have to be as articulate as Martin Luther King Jr., right? And just put them out there and you just read them. But it's like I know with my husband, this year is going to be difficult. It's going to be painful. It's going to be difficult. But I want him focused on what all of that is for, because that's going to help him find a way.
Back to the vision. What would you say for you're making a difference in the world. What's the vision of your company?
Yeah, every day I remind I just had a meeting with my staff this morning and I said, I always start our meeting and I end our meeting with our vision. And it is simply that people are struggling with change and uncertainty. They need a path forward. And that's our job to show them how easy, effective, and how much opportunity there is in the marketplace. And we start every meeting and we end every meeting like that. And I remind my team, you're making a difference.
Oh, we're very similar. We're in a trust crisis. We think the world's in a trust crisis. We have the way forward in building trust. It's a little more articulate in our policy manual, but we build trusted leaders and organizations around the world. And we believe that we make the biggest difference when we do that. So, Let's jump into one more piece. I want to touch on a couple of the other books because I think you've got such a breadth of work. But in this whole process, is there one more thing, one more step? And everybody should get the book, Thrive, Strategies to Turn Uncertainty to Competitive Advantage. But one more tip or takeaway from this book on how we can thrive today, especially in the midst of uncertainty.
Yeah, I think, really my favorite step is to help people make money in the middle of, uncertainty, because it's a myth that there is an opportunity out there. There's so much opportunity. And it's strategy number 5. It's secure your base, that in an uncertain marketplace, business grows from the inside out. It's not about attracting new business, because you can't attract new business until you understand the current problems your existing customers have. It's really about being relevant in the marketplace. And I'll just tell you a really quick story, but it's the story of Procter & Gamble. A lot of people know it as P&G. And while it's a famous company, a lot of people don't know that it was started in the early 1800s by two men, Procter and Gamble, who married sisters. And they competed for animal fat. One made soap and one made candles. And one night at a kitchen table in Cincinnati, Ohio, they were fighting over the price of animal fat. And their future father-in-law heard them and said, boys, why don't you quit competing and start a company? And Procter & Gamble was born. Now, Procter & Gamble is rooted in this step. They don't put a product to market that they don't engage customers first. They ask. And the first product they were going to put on the market was soap. I love that it was soap because I can't think of a more product that's more of a commodity. How do you differentiate yourself? Well, they went out and they talked to people and they said, what do you like about soap? What do you not like about soap? And what they got from their customers was gold. People loved soap, but there was a problem. See, when you use soap and you lather it up, it'll slip out of your hands, fall to the bottom of the bathtub, and you can't find it. Customers told Procter & Gamble that they wanted, quote unquote, a soap that floats. Procter & Gamble shot air into a bar of Ivory soap. And if anybody remembers, the tagline for Ivory soap was always a soap that floats. And by the end of the 1800s, Procter & Gamble was $1 million company. Now, their competitors were selling soaps that smelled good, that came in different shapes and different colors, but their competitors were selling products that solved the wrong problem. If you want to grow in today's marketplace, solve the right problem. And the only way to do that is talk to customers.
Hey everyone, a quick interruption here to share some big news. April 12th through the 14th, you are invited to the Trusted Leaders Summit. What makes a powerful event is bringing together amazing people in a way that actually makes an impact in the world. We're talking about a get-together that is packed with immediately useful content. You'll hear from top leaders like John Foley, the former lead solo pilot for the Blue Angels, Harvard professor Alison Shapira, and more incredible global experts. Get your tickets before they're gone at trustedleadersummit.com and join us in becoming even more trusted leaders. We can't wait to see you there.
Love it. Get feedback. Why don't we do it? Why don't people go, just ask, what do you want more of? What do you like? What can I keep doing? Yeah. Both appreciative inquiry and feedback. Oh, such great advice over and over and over.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to get personal in a moment, but before we do, sure. I want to talk about a couple more of the books, because just to touch on them so people know about them, and a couple key ideas, because we talk a lot as far as trust around responsibility, and you wrote the book Own It, and you're redefining responsibility. What's the key thought in this book?
Yeah, when I wanted to put responsibility in the title, my publisher said, you can't put responsibility in the title. And I said, why? They said, nobody will buy a book on responsibility. Nobody wants it. Here's the main premise of that book. And the main premise was, I just really started to interview a lot of successful people, self-made people who came from nothing. And the thing that I found over and over again was they passionately believed they were successful because nobody bailed them out. When they failed, they had to pick themselves up. I mean, I was interviewing people that came of age before Social Security, back when you couldn't move home with your parents, back when if you lost a job, there was no unemployment. And they were grateful for the fact that they had to figure a way. And I just felt like we need to stop seeing responsibility as a negative and see it for the gift that it is. Because when I stop blaming others or blaming my environment, I put the blame back on myself. And the beautiful thing about understanding I'm responsible is I can control me. I'm the one thing I can change. I can move. And when I do that, I become empowered to become and accomplish anything I want to accomplish. Personally, I believe we've become a culture that is just too quick to blame everybody else for the reasons that we're not succeeding. And even if it's valid, sometimes it isn't fair, your circumstances. We're still cheating you out of an ability to get out of that by telling you that it's not your fault and that you don't have the power within you. So that book I wrote based on finding the power within yourself to become and be anything you want to be. And responsibility is a gift. It's not a burden.
I love it. Oh, don't we wish this for all those we work with, our kids, our family, everybody, responsibility. We think a lot about this because we kind of differentiate accountability and responsibility. Many people think they know a lot about accountability. When we'll ask in a company, so how do you hold people accountable here? And they're like, oh, accountability stuff. They don't know, right?
Right.
And I agree with you in that responsibility we define as that I can hold myself responsible. I, as a leader, can hold others accountable. Right. Therefore, it's easier to have a healthy, accountable company if I've hired responsible people. But there's two sides there. You wrote Who Comes Next. You wrote the best sales book. That's got to be, come on now. The best sales book. What's one of the best tips from the best sales book?
Well, with that, David, I wrote that with Connie Podesta. What else was she going to title? Course. That book. I would say that my favorite tip out of there, I'm not sure that Connie would agree, but my favorite tip out of there, my best tip for sales is build your network. It will change your life. If you build your network, you will never cold call ever again. Build relationships long before you need them. Don't treat it like sales. Treat it like adding value and investing in other people.
Totally. The old phrases of your net worth is equal to your net worth, or so forth. So there's one more that I know the publisher's interested in. Again, you wrote it a while ago, and I don't usually jump. I usually go deeper, but you've written so much. I want people to get to know you. I think we'll come back and go deep on something sometime, but I want my audience to know you, those that listen to the Trusted Leader Show. And I do want to touch on one more because it's interesting to me, and that is the book you wrote a while back called The Confidence Plan. It's looks like it'll be coming out again, refreshed in the future. But I think of, with this one, I even think of, certainly people, but I think of my kids, right? I think of my daughters. I've got 4 kids, but my daughters, you want for your daughters healthy confidence, right? I think my wife would even say here, it's been a journey, and she is an unbelievable leader today. But, this work toward having healthy confidence that isn't this ego-driven and isn't, certain things that maybe even our culture said women should be or girls should be or whatever. And so I'd love to talk a little bit about what's a confidence plan, or how do we build healthy confidence in ourselves or our kids?
Yeah, I think it's, so great. So the reason I wrote that book was, I had a group of women leaders approach me and said, would you come talk to our group about confidence? And my first thought was me. And, they said, yes, you appear so confident. And I do believe I am, but boy, I didn't start out that way. Not at all. And so it really made me think, like, what did I do to build confidence? And I love the fact that you drew the difference between confidence and arrogance, because anytime I speak about it, I really make that difference. It's a humble belief in yourself and belief that you can accomplish and you can do things, while at the same time having an incredible thirst for knowledge and input from other people, being okay with not always having the answers, and one of the most important things that I think to build confidence is, number one, is to be in an environment that allows you to try and to fail. Is that, for other people not coming in and doing things for you. I believe that confidence is built through progress, not through the end result. So with that, whenever I'm helping people, and a lot that we talk about in the book is you have to have a vision for yourself. You have to have goals of things that you want to accomplish, but it's about taking baby steps. I come out of definitely a loving home, but unfortunately my home was riddled with alcoholism. 6 male members of my family, including both my brothers, my father, my first husband, all died of alcoholism. And I was really ashamed of that, so much so that it eroded my confidence. It's a funny thing about confidence, it has nothing to do with me, but it still took the wings out from under me. And I had to start to look at the parts of my life that weren't where I wanted them to be and take baby steps. I couldn't go from 0 to 60. I didn't know how to have healthy relationships. So I had to take a step. My health wasn't quite where I needed to get it. I was always busy taking care of everybody's health. So the biggest advice I say to people is you need to look and be honest in every area of your life, your health, your finances, your relationships, your spirituality, and professionally. Rate yourself 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, of where you are, and be honest. Just doing that is like getting a weight, because confidence is eroded because we're trying to hide or keep something down. We're unsure of ourselves. And so let's say that, your health isn't where it needs to be. Well, you don't have to be an Olympic athlete this time next year, but if you could just say, I'm going to take a walk twice a week, you'll start to feel better about yourself. And the very fact that you may be a 1 in health and you want to be a 5, just the very fact that you're making progress, it builds your confidence. Last thing I'm going to say is who you surround yourself with is everything. You need people who support that. And you got enough gremlins happening in your own head. You need people around you who support your dreams and support that. I'm passionate that confidence can be learned, and it's important to work on it and to build it.
You become like the people you're around, right?
Completely.
We're the average almost in attitude, wealth, brain power, and almost everything else of the people we spend the most time with, it seems. Wow. Be careful who you surround yourself with. Humble belief in yourself, a whole lot more. I love this. It's so good. Yeah. As long as we talk, personally, there's so much. This is my free $20,000 consulting session for me and everybody that listens to Trusted Leader Show. So we're just going to suck the mirror of life out of it right now. So thank you from everybody listening to get to sit in the room with Meridith Elliott Powell. Meridith Elliott Powell. I do have to like that's I just want to say Meridith.
You can even just call me Mayor. That's what everybody in the family does.
All right. Well, it's been a journey and a fun journey to get to know you a bit. But I want to ask another question because we find at least leaders that seem to be great on stage are great in their work publicly, and you have a whole lot of public work. I see and know you serve on boards. I know, and we've been on stage together at some of the biggest stages, at least in the country. But the great leaders aren't just, they seem like they're doing the right things privately. They're leading themselves well. And I know you do some things you love outside, but what are some of the things you do to lead yourself well?
Oh, I think that some of the things I do to lead myself well is, number one, I'm a big believer that you've got to practice what you preach, that my actions are so much more important than my words. And that even means mornings that I'm frustrated and maybe I'm getting on a call with my team to kind of catch myself before I get on there, not to bring the attitude that's going to motivate, that's going to inspire them. I also am very selfish about taking time to invest in myself. I think as a leader, we have to realize that a lot of energy is taken out of us, and we need that time to replenish. So I'm incredibly selfish about that. And then I would say the third is to make sure that I'm spending the time educating myself. I mean, as a leader, I need to stay one step ahead, and I need to be providing value for my clients, for my team, for my family. And, what am I doing, in order to be able to provide that?
What do you do? What are some of the things you consistently read or listen to? How do you stay fresh and relevant and capable? Yeah. What are you looking at and learning from?
So every single morning, I spend at least, 30 minutes to an hour reading The Economist. Most of my clients are, in the corporate world. And so, that is an everyday, indulgence. On Sundays, or if I'm going through airports, it's my guilty pleasure is, if I'm in a hotel, I'll read the Wall Street Journal. I quit getting it, at home because I don't I don't have the time to read it every day. So many of our colleagues send me books and things all the time. So I read those books. And then I admitted to you right before we got on this show, I'm a major big nerd. So I watch investment. I watch investment shows. The counter to that is that at least for 90 minutes every day, no matter where I am in the world, you will catch me outside doing something, whether it's a hike, whether it's a mountain bike. And on that, I don't think about anything. I don't think about business. That's just really time to, sometimes I'm with my husband or another member of the family or a friend. Sometimes I'm just by myself, but that's my indulgence to be able to do that.
On that exercise or outside, is that your exercise? And then is that varied all the time? So golf can be at this day, mountain biking can be at that day, but you just make sure there's always 90 minutes outside.
Yeah, there's always, and it's, so if I play golf, I walk and, I carry my clubs. And so, but it's always, it's varied. I got out of the gym years ago. I mean, if I'm in a hotel, I'll go, but for me, it's much more important, for movement. And especially, I don't know how you are about this, David, but if I have a client with a really big problem or I'm about to do a big major keynote, I'll choose my mountain bike or a hiking trail because just that distance helps me get some kind of realization into a story I need to hone in, or I don't know, there's just something about getting out in nature like that that clears my head and allows ideas and solutions to open up. When I was a kid, my mother used to always say, there's nothing that a good hike in the woods won't solve. And as a kid, I never thought she was right, but she's 150% right.
My wife would put a triple stamp of approval on this, outside. So sometimes
Yes.
I'll get on an elliptical in our home and I'll put my earbuds on, listen to podcasts. I like to do that. She's like, why don't you get outside? And in Minnesota, we say there's no bad weather, just the wrong clothes, right? So you can handle anything 40 below zero, but you just got to wear the right stuff.
That's right. I agree.
Yeah. Meridith, this has been such a joy. Tons of tips and takeaways here, but where can we find out more? Where's the best place to find out more about you? I know you've got courses, you've got a whole lot of, you've got the books and a whole lot of other things to share. Where can we find out about you?
Yeah. So you can find me at my website, which is just valuespeaker.com, just the words valuespeaker.com. I'm also, I tend to be on LinkedIn almost every day. It's my preferred social media. And I'm a big believer in build your network, change your life. So if you reach out and connect with me, I will definitely connect with you.
Thank you, Meridith. You know it. It's the Trusted Leader Show. Who is a leader you trust and why?
Ken Langone, one of the founders of Home Depot. I just finished reading his book, I Love Capitalism. But the more that I have studied Ken Langone over the years, and I've gotten a chance to have dinner with him more than a few times, but he is truly a man. I love self-made people who came from nothing, and his parents were immigrants, came to Brooklyn, believed in education, and he built himself up from there. But just the story of his life, time and time again, he always took the right road and has always been about the right things. And now that he's become a billionaire, he's invested in, building the Langone Medical Center in New York City and just really giving back and making a difference. His core area of focus is education. And I believe in him. You give people education, you can change their lives. That's so true. And education motivates. Education. Yes. When I learned exactly what was inside of a hot dog, I stopped eating so many. So That's right. Oh my, everybody listening, what a treat to be with Meridith. This has been the Trusted Leader Show. If you want any of the show notes, they'll all be there, trustedleadershow.com. For everybody listening, remember the Trusted Leaders Summit is coming up. The best deal is right now, only a little bit longer, trustedleadersummit.com. Meridith Elliott Powell, it has been a treat to be with you today. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Thanks for the friendship. And that has been the Trusted Leader Show. Until next time, stay trusted.